Welcome everybody to another edition of WCW 2004. It's now time for one of our big pay-per-views, WCW Slamboree. Well, in theory all of them are big, but this is a particularly loaded card. I could even say it's a stack card. But before we get to that, of course, as a quick little thing, I have a Patreon, which I've set up, it's in the description below, and again, no pressure for anybody to sign up, just an extra little thing if people want to do it. Everything from a $1 tier where you just get some thanks in this video description below, to a $5, $7.50, $10 tier where you can get stuff like downloads of the databases for these series I'm doing, ability to put a character of your own into one of these series, some writing I've done as far as background of the series, backstage stuff, ability to do some votes on the booking, and so on and so forth. Again, links in the below for the Patreon, but now it's on to the actual pay-per-view, as we are live from 17,000 people at the Key Arena in beautiful Seattle, Washington. Well, it's May. Yeah, it's getting warm by then, as somebody who lives there. So we start with our opening video, focusing on the Booker-Hardy feud and everything else that's going on. As this gets an 85, as we go to our opening match, which is AJ Styles versus Elix Skipper for the WCW Cruiserweight title. And again, this is a back and forth, just pure high-flying, spots match. Skipper gives as good as he gets, and, Styles is one of the best young wrestlers in the company. It looks like he's going to hit this Styles clash to get out of, get another successful defense. But Skipper gets out of it, is able to hit a couple, quick big moves in a row, and then out of nowhere, hits the overdrive. Goes for the overdrive. Styles gets out of it, but Skipper sends Styles into the corner. Skipper rolls him up, holds the tights. 1, 2, 3. And we have a new Cruiserweight title, as Skipper wins a Cruiserweight title, as this gets a 74. AJ Styles gets a 79, Elix Skipper gets a 54. AJ Styles seemed off his game, probably because he didn't want to do the job. He didn't complain about it, but, Skipper's not that over yet. This is part of the way to get him over. And, honestly, yeah, AJ Styles is obviously, as you can probably guess, off to bigger and better things. And, Skipper now gets to hold down the Cruiserweight 4. But a big win for Skipper, as he then celebrates to a 42 with his newly won Cruiserweight title. Then next up, we've got our big last woman standing match between Celine Cartier and Angel Foxx. This is just an absolute fight from the start. If you ever seen the, I think it's Taryn Terrell versus, I want to say Gail, it's Taryn Terrell versus somebody who I'm totally blanking on right now from TNA. If you just search Taryn Terrell last woman standing match, it's sort of like that, as we've got garbage cans, we got singing more canes, we've got fighting on the outside, we've got fighting on the inside, we got lots of brawling, we've just got two women who really hate each other, just beating the shit out of each other. But unfortunately for the fans, tonight, one woman is just a little bit better, and that woman is the woman who's turned their back on them. As Foxx is able to hit, I imagine her hitting a chair shot, then hitting a cane shot, drilling Celine Cartier with a big running knee, then picking Cartier up and hitting the Angel Snap DDT to get the pinfall victory, as she could not then get up for a 10 count, as Angel Foxx gets the big one, as this gets a 64, Celine Cartier gets a 60, Angel Foxx gets a 55, and Angel Foxx is your winner, and, really, gets herself as, after a couple months of basically being lost in the background, this heel turn has really helped her out, and she's now, one of the top contenders to the Women's World Championship. And then, of course, post-match, Foxx celebrates to a 54 as the crowd boos, but she probably doesn't care as she's got a big one tonight. Then next up, it's our United States title match, as it's Keenan Sharpe versus Yushir Tajiri. Of course, Sharpe, wants everybody to follow the way. Tajiri got the big win, in a 6-man match, then won the number 1 contendership. So now it's, basically been Sharpe and Tajiri. Of course, Sharpe won the title off of Mesias Jr. Tajiri does his best to, hit kicks, and Sharpe, does his, Muay and MMA style takedowns and is brawling to keep Tajiri down, but Tajiri is just a little bit better. In the end, Tajiri goes for the brainbuster, but Sharpe slips out of it. But Sharpe goes for one of his takedowns, but Tajiri fights out of that. And eventually, Sharpe gets too upset and just drills, after Tajiri has knocked him to the outside, Sharpe brings a chair into the ring, and after, the ref tries to calm him down, tries to tell him no, Sharpe pushes the ref away and goes after Tajiri, and that makes the ref call the bell for the DQ, as Sharpe keeps his title, but Tajiri wins via DQ in a 70, as Tajiri defeats Keenan Sharpe in 12-16, when Sharpe intentionally got disqualified. This gets a 70, Sharpe gets a 67, Tajiri gets a 64, And then afterwards, like, Sharpe goes to attack Tajiri, but Tajiri actually drills him with a kick and sends him to the outside as he stares down Sharpe while the fans boo that in fact Sharpe got out of this without losing the United States title. As this, like, post-match thing gets a 67, and yeah, unfortunately, Sharpe holds the U.S. title, but Tajiri will probably still want another shot at that belt. Then next up, we've got our match that was changed sort of at the last second, as, it was going to be set to be Mesias versus Sean O'Haire, but of course, Deadpool took out Sean O'Haire, sending him off the ramp, and now, with him out of commission for at least a couple weeks, his erstwhile teammate stepped in, and now it's Jack Palumbo versus Mesias, and this is just a wild brawl, as these guys just, again, totally kick the crap out of each other, suplexes, slams, big moves, but, unfortunately, Deadpool are kind of correct in the sense that, Sean O'Haire is huge shock. He just might be the future of World Champion of Wrestling, and Chuck Palumbo really does have the talent, but he's just a step behind Sean O'Haire, and that's all you need when you're facing Mesias, as Mesias eventually gains the advantage, hits the big choke slam, grabs Palumbo, nails him with the crucifix powerbomb, and there's nowhere for Palumbo to go. 1, 2, 3. Big pinfall victory for the Monster Mesias as he gets the win here. Mesias gets an 85, Palumbo gets an 83. Let's see what happened here as far as why this didn't do quite as well as I thought. Okay, disrupted by injury. Palumbo was penalized for stamina. Okay, and that's about it. So so he suffered a fractured wrist, so probably he had some problems getting Palumbo up, and probably made the finish a little bit screwy, but again, after 10:42, Mesias gets the win, and that's it, as match overall 75, so solid match. And in the post-match, what happens, of course, yep, I see. Mesias, goes after Palumbo, but Palumbo, basically, fights out of another crucifix powerbomb and escapes to the outside as the fans boo the finish, as this gets a 74. But Mesias looks very dangerous with another big win over another top star. And then after that, we've got our tag team title match, as Jett and London try to win back their tag team champions against the Silver City Rollers of Reno and Cash. And it looks like they really are going to get it done, as they're just high-flying all over the ring and getting plenty of tag match, getting lots of tag moves together. But Reno and Cash are also a very impressive team as they fight back with, Reno hitting a suplex, Jett hitting a, drop kick from the top, other wacky, moves, powerbomb into a cutter, version of Total Elimination. Jett and London fight back with their own fly move. Paul London, does something insane, sort of fly off the top rope. But in the end, Amber O'Neil gets involved as she comes in, after, what happens is, Reno is yelling at the ref for something else. Amber O'Neil slides in from behind with the title belt, whacks Art, your friend and mine, Jason Jett with it. That allows, of course, Reno to then nail Jett and hit him with his finisher and get the pinfall victory. It doesn't mention Amber O'Neil getting involved, because of course it didn't, because this game is weird. But regardless, that was the finish. Reno gets the win. Silver City's Rollers make defense number 2 of the World Tag Team titles, as in about that wrestling decent with the crowd. They get the win after 11:43. Paul London gets an 81. Jason Jett gets a 62. Reno gets a 71. Cash gets a 74. And like I said, the match overall gets an 81, which is a really good tag match. And post-match, of course, Helms Legacy celebrates to a 69, as the announcers put over a bit very impressive, even if through, less than amiable means, from the tag team champions. Then we have a very big match, as in a rematch from last month. It's Jeff Jarrett versus Kanyon. Jeff Jarrett, of course, has, created his chosen few of him, Rigordy, who's now injured for over a year, and the television champion Mark Indrak. And of course, Kanyon has been off on his own, but is now trying to take apart the last vestiges of the former Horseman, as it's Kanyon versus Jarrett. And they, again, high-level U.S. Pro style match. Jeff Jarrett, of course, has his years of experience. Lots of brawling, suplexes, clotheslines, a little bit of, lead up for the figure 4. Kanyon, fights back with his own moves. I imagine him, hitting the Kanyon cutter and going for the pinfall, but Jarrett gets his foot on the ropes just barely. Kanyon goes for a pile driver even, but Jarrett fights back. Jarrett, brawls to the outside. And eventually what happens is this match spills to the outside. No chosen few involvement, and they just fight. They fight, and eventually the ref counts to 10, and both men get counted out, as the match gets an 85. Jeff Jarrett draws with Kanyon in 16:37, following a double countout. As Jeff Jarrett gets an 86, Kanyon gets a 92, And yeah, 85 overall. Really, really, really good match. But unfortunately, for Kanyon, he can't get the win over his former horseman stablemate. And unfortunately for Jeff Jarrett, he can't get the big win over the man he thinks, he should have been placed in front of for world title shots and such. So it looks like this feud must continue. And this is only helped by the fact that, of course, they continue to fight afterwards to the back until WCW officials break them apart, as that little post-match fight gets a 71. So a really huge match. It ends inconclusively, which is unfortunate. But yeah, after that, eventually after everybody gets broken apart, it's time for another big match, as Vampiro, who broke apart from the Deadpool after getting laid out by them and almost sacrificed, is now facing Morningstar, who of course receives the message from somebody else, who knows who that is. But of course they have a fun little match together, as they both have their own little bits of dynamic offense. Of course, Morningstar is Christopher Daniels, so he hits all sorts of indie style moves, lots of suplexes, backbreakers, big moonsault, even hits some vicious kicks. But Vampiro fights back with his unorthodox offense, a crescent kick, roundhouse kick, brawling, fight to the outside. But eventually what happens here is what you expect to happen here, as near the end of the match, it looks like Vampiro is going to get the win. But as he's going up top for a dive, Vampiro Morningstar puts the ref in the way. The ref is out. Vampiro knows what's going to happen here, so he immediately comes towards the outside and grabs a chair. But and he absolutely, as Mesias comes in to do the interference, he absolutely drills Mesias with the chair. But it's Mesias, so he basically no sells it. And even if he didn't no sell it, Morningstar is right behind him, attacking him from behind. And Vampiro does fight a little bit, as he breaks one attempt at a double clothesline and hits both men, but eventually it's 2-on-1, and it's two of the most impressive wrestlers on the roster. So Mesias finally hits a chokeslam on Vampiro that allows him to hit the last rights, and 1, 2, 3, a huge pinfall victory for Morningstar over Vampiro in a chaotic match, as he gets the big win after a little over 12 minutes, 12:41. As Morningstar gets an 85, Vampiro gets an 81, and evil wins, because sometimes evil just does that. They win. Which is unfortunate, but that's how life runs sometimes, and what can you do about it? And then, he did take the last rights, but Vampiro is able to basically roll out of the ring and escape before Mesias and Morningstar can get a hold of him, just like Palumbo. And we see the Deadpool both standing as Vampiro sort of stumbles backwards, putting his hands through his hair, happy, that he didn't get, totally destroyed by his former stablemates, but also unhappy that he didn't get a win over the man who's now basically the leader of the two-man Deadpool, Morningstar. And after that, it's time for our big Women's World title match. Of course, Nikita Kalt has run through the promotion, easily taking the Women's World title, but now she's facing the challenge of the newly babyface turned Gail Kim, who wants to face the challenge of the man who some say would have been a top of the division if she'd been brought up earlier. Of course, Gail Kim believes she's the blue chipper. She's the head bitch in charge of this division, and she wants to take the fight to Nikita Kalt. And she does take the fight, as, they have a really solid match, really battling against each other. Kalt uses her submission styles to try to take down Gail Kim, but Gail Kim fights back, hits her kicks, hits her big straw kicks, goes up top, hits a big crossbody, which almost gets a victory, but Kalt tries to turn that into some sort of, a lock and hold, but Gail Kim fights out of that, hits a big suplex, hits a big, Northern Light suplex, which almost gets a victory, but Kalt kicks out. And in the end, it looks like, Kalt is going to lock on her armbar, but Gail Kim always gets to the ropes, or is able to sort of adjust and, bend her will, so she's able to get to the ropes or get her foot right under it. And, Kalt gets a little, gets frustrated by this and goes for a little brawly style, but that's just what Gail Kim wants, as Gail Kim eventually fights back, and he'll go up top and hit a huge eat defeat to win the Women's World title after 12-10, getting the victory over Nikita Kalt and whatever you say. As this gets a 66, Nikita Kalt gets a 55, Gail Kim gets a 60, and a huge victory as she gets the first she gets the, first singles victory over Nikita Kalt. Again, backstage booking note, I wanted to do this because, I didn't want, the whole, what happens too often is somebody gets booked as, sort of a Suka problem where so I just wanted to get rid of, like, she has this, he was heel, solid put over as a top heel, got the big world title, got decent women's world title run, but she then do the job not after long, so she's not, like, so she can take losses, like, But again, big win for Gail Kim. As I said, this gets a 66, which I think is our best women's match ever, and yeah, big victory as Gail Kim celebrates with the world title, with the women's world title afterwards to a 68. As the crowd cheers, the women, they don't think they'd be cheering before. Now it's time for 4 big matches, built up in 4 different ways, and could end up in 4 very different finishes. So our first big match is, of course, Eddie Guerrero versus Jamie Knoble. Eddie lost the world title at Spring Stampede, at Sacrifice rather, not Spring Stampede, to Booker, and Jamie Knoble, sort of challenged Eddie Guerrero over that, and, Knoble is pointing out that this is, him challenging Eddie, sort of the way that Eddie challenged men like Ric Flair and other top stars at the beginning of the Nitro era. Eddie fights back, like he's here now because he wanted to be at the top of the top promotion in the world. Knoble says, he ran away, and sort of this, like, philosophical differences is, as, one could say in a lot of ways, Jamie Knoble is an old Eddie Guerrero, obviously a lot of different ways, no family background, but of course Eddie would disagree with that. But of course they get in the ring and they fight, and it is a back and forth, just, both men going all out, fighting each other, battling, Knoble hitting hitting lots of suplexes, Eddie fighting back with his own sort of, Eddie Guerrero family brawling, also hitting some suplexes, hitting a huge, hitting the 3 amigos early, but Knoble fights out, match goes out to the outside. I mean, Ebony Sable does not get involved, but Knoble, is able to get the advantage outside, brawling with Eddie, sends him to the steps, sends him outside, hits a huge DDT on the outside, then, is just attacks him, brings him inside, tries to lock on the trailer hitch, but Eddie fights out of it. Eddie goes for his own lasso from El Paso, but Knoble gets out of that as well. Knoble goes back to his high-flying earlier style when back was part of his Young Dragons, so he hits a side moonsault, goes up top, hits a sort of spinning leg drop for a near fall, then brings Eddie up, goes for a brainbuster of his own, but Eddie gets out of that, goes for his own brainbuster, but Knoble slips out of that, hits a big, like, backdrop style suplex, and then Knoble again tries to lock in that sort of guillotine choke trailer hitch, but Knoble again gets out. Eddie alone quickly gets his foot on the ropes. Knoble gets frustrated and, like, just attacks Eddie, but Eddie isn't, Eddie is ready for that as he slips out, and he fights back on his own way, and Eddie goes up top, and Eddie eventually gets Knoble in position. Big tornado DDT like his nephew Chavo, picks Knoble up again, brainbuster up top, frog splash, no. What happens next is a huge thing. As, of course, as we saw here, Knoble, Eddie, Knoble's knees hits Eddie's chest, and that gives Knoble just the moment to lock in the guillotine choke right in the middle of the ring, and with nowhere to go, Eddie Guerrero has to submit right there, clean in the ring to Jamie Knoble. Match itself gets an 80, which is a little... so Knoble gets an 80, Eddie gets an 87. Let's see, was there anything? Oh, shit. I forgot to add a storyline to this. Fuck. Well, not the end of the world. Like, Knoble still gets the huge win here. This probably would have gotten an 85 with a decent storyline, though, which is unfortunate. But yeah, still, a absolutely huge win for Knoble. And then post-match, of course, he celebrates, which is 73. And, the biggest, one could say the biggest victory of his career. I mean, one could argue. Hell, that's just true. Like, what's his biggest win before? Being Cruiserweight champion? But yeah, even then, he lost to Liger. So yeah, an immensely huge win for Knoble over Eddie Guerrero. And yeah, for those of you wondering, yeah, Eddie offered to put Knoble over. So I set this up, after, so I just had to figure out a way to set up the match and everything else. But yeah, just a massive, massive win for Knoble as he celebrates, the crowd boos, and Eddie slings back to ringside. But that's not it, as of course after that, the cage comes down. Mike Awesome comes down first. Then out comes the man, Bill Goldberg, and the fight is on right from the start. No backing down, nothing else. You know, just two men just beating the crap out of each other. And again, this is a cage match. It's a, it's a cage modern match, so, it's cage heat. But of course, Kidman and Storm eventually, they toss some refs away. They manage to get the inside the cell, but that does, as it's a 3-on-1 advantage initially, but initially it's a 2-on-1 as Goldberg has tossed Awesome to the outside. He hit a big sort of like spear on the outside against the cage, so he's out. And what happens is, Storm and Kidman go after Goldberg, but they get a little too cocky. They send Goldberg into the ropes. Goldberg breaks the clothesline attempt, bounces back, and destroys both men with a spear, tosses them to the outside. Awesome comes in from behind. He goes for the Awesome Bomb, attacking Goldberg from behind, but Goldberg, backdrops him, spear, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3. The big win for Goldberg over Mike Awesome. Yeah, not enough selling, lack of psychology, what can you expect? But an exceptional match. Bill Goldberg defeats Mike Awesome in 11:24 by pinfall the jackhammer. This gets an 82. And yeah, really good match, as Goldberg gets to look like the badass he is and gets the big win. And post-match, Goldberg celebrates to a 69. Nice. And after that, we have our semifinal, as it's Shane Helms trying to end the era, end the myth of Extreme, going after Rob Van Dam. And as you can imagine, this match is just two men going straight after each other. RVD is upset, of course, that, he wants to toss away all of Van Dam's accomplishments, and Helms wants to kill another legend. A slightly different type of legend this time around, but still a legend nonetheless. But, Helms goes after RVD, he just, of course, as he always does, he tries for the quick strike, hitting the super kick early, but it's way too early as RVD fights out. And eventually, we get lots of suplexes, lots of high-flying moves. Helms is a evil SOB, but he's a talented as hell wrestler. He hits a quick strike DDT early, then goes up top, hits a senton, but RVD kicks out, RVD fights out. RVD sends Helms to the outside, then hits a dive as his own, brawl to the outside, lots of fighting, clothesline, big kicks. Helms goes up top and hits a sort of like a twisting splash onto RVD, who's against the guardrail. Yeah, words are hard sometimes. But then tosses RVD in and waits for him to get up. Boom, super kick, but Helms kicks out at 2.5 to Helms again. So Helms picks up RVD for the vertebreaker, but RVD gets out of it. Hits a couple quick hits. Eventually goes for the Van Damator, but Helms is ready for him and actually hits him with the chair and hits him over the back. Then he goes for the super kick, but RVD is ready for that, and RVD catches him. Helms goes for Enziguri, but Helms ducks under that, and RVD actually then locks on sort of a crossface, but Helms fights out of that pretty easily. Rolling Thunder happens. RVD goes up top for the 5-star frog splash, but Helms gets out of the way at the last moment. Then Helms gets back up, hits a quick sort of like version of the Death Valley Driver. Then comes out of the corner with a big knee strike. Gets RVD ready for another super kick, but RVD is ready, and as Helms goes for the super kick, RVD, hits one of his roundhouse style kicks. Both men just drill each other with a glancing blow. They're both slow to get up, and Helms actually ducks under an RVD clothesline and locks in a sort of bridge, and brings RVD over for a backslide. 1, 2, 3. Shock win? No. Ref goes to the announcer, and it's announced as a double pinfall. Crowd is, crowd of course, boos this because, double pinfalls, nobody likes straws. But it's unfortunate for RVD as, for both men. And of course, they're both unhappy about it. But, Helms, yells, complains to the ref. So does RVD. But there's nothing to do as it's a double pinfall, as this match, nothing happens here despite superb wrestling and great heat. RVD gets an 89, Shane Helms gets an 84. And this overall gets an 81, which I think was probably a case of, let's see here, survey says, disrupted by injury. Okay, yeah. Again, probably without the drummer's elbow, this probably would have gotten mid-80s. And then, of course, RVD and Helms both think they've won. They go to the ref, and eventually they stare off before WCW officials get between them, to make sure there's no further fight. And yeah, so this gets in a 71 real quick as the post-match, and then it's main event time. As first, out comes Jeff Hardy to the cheers of the crowd as this gets a 78 as Hardy comes down, as crowd cheers the challenger to Booker's World Heavyweight Championship, as then Booker comes down with Sharmell, which also gets a 78, and then it's time for the match. And well, okay, sometimes you sort of have to accept the hurt of a lower rating to put over the storyline, both backstage and in character. So as you saw, like after Nitro last week, Jeff Hardy, was popped for drugs. So initially, this was going to be your typical heel victory where Jeff Hardy looks strong, but Booker ends up cheating to win. But after what happened last week, I can't do that. So basically, what happens here is Jeff Hardy, he doesn't get completely squashed. He gets his spots in, but unfortunately for Jeff Hardy, the story here is Booker's a prick. Booker's a cocky asshole. Booker's sort of self-deluded, but he's still, a 6-time world champion. And, near the end of the match, what happens is, Hardy has the momentum. He hits his, flying, splash in the corner there. He hits a twist of fate or whisper in the wind. He even, he even goes up top, and he goes for the senton bomb, but Booker rolls out at the last possible second. But, Booker goes for the bookend right away, but Hardy fights out of it. He goes for another twist of fate / whisper and win, but Booker blocks it, sends Hardy into the corner. Booker hits a sort of version of side suplex, which allows him to hit the ass kick, and then right in the middle of the ring, hit the bookend, 1, 2, 3, and retained the WCW title. And oh wow, okay, so I actually have to wow, fuck Booker. Why are you so fucking good, Booker? Okay, so imagine all that, but about 15 minutes of fantastic wrestling beforehand, as Jeff Hardy, despite the fact that Jeff Hardy, hits a bunch of spots to really look good, but Booker, is really into this heel character. As he brawls, he battles, he avoids, Jeff Hardy puts him on a table, but Booker gets out of it before he can actually take the table bump. Jeff Hardy dives off a chair onto Booker on the outside to give him some initial advantage, and Jeff Hardy even hits twist of fate and tries to go for the pin off of that, but it's just not enough, as Booker is really proving himself as the best wrestler in the world. As this match gets a 95, Jesus, as Booker T gets an 88, Jeff Hardy gets an 89, which is really why that popping for the drugs really hurt, because this match might have got 100 if I would have done it as open. But again, not the end of the world, as Booker continues to look like the top guy in the ring. And so what happens is, Jeff Hardy rolls out, accepting his defeat, as Booker rants and raves to the crowd, pointing at his belt, saying there's nobody that can beat him. He's a six-time world champion. He's the best in the world. Secca, can you dig that? And then, as Booker continues to rant, some very familiar hits. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I can't do it with the music. It's Goldberg. He comes down. There's a stare down. Crowd pops huge. As it looks like there is a challenger for Booker, and it's the man, Bill Goldberg. So this gets an 82. So overall gets a 91. And yeah, I have to hand it over to Booker. Okay, overall, who else did really good? Oh yeah, Morningstar, get some credit, and also let's just give some credit to Kanyon, who did the job here. So everybody seems pleased. We'll check out some popularity changes, because that's about all we can do here, and some storylines, and see what's going on. Because, of course, we'll do our typical, around the world check-in afterwards, unless something really weird happened in the shows tonight. But I don't think there was, so let's just see what happens here as this loads. And hey, it's Paige's his mom. Slamboree 04, yeah, we'll see. Oh yeah, we'll also check out, okay. Is anybody seriously injured? Mesias, okay. No, just can't work. And okay, so they just won't work tomorrow, which is fine for Nitro. So yeah. Okay, so let's go check out some people's overages. Okay, so first, just to see here, did Styles get really hurt by doing the job. Let's see, your survey says, no. He lost a point or two. Now let's see how much better Elix Skipper got as a result of that. I mean, a decent, not quite as good as I wanted, but still a couple point raise. Let's see here. Who else do we care about? Yeah, let's see here. Kanyon, I think, is still very over. Yeah, Kanyon did not get hurt at all about that lost. Jarrett, let's see here. Jarrett. Okay, I mean, Jesus, Jarrett's almost like our top heel at this point. That's sort of scary. Vamp, let's see here. Vamp's long, yeah, he lost another point. Morningstar survey says for that guy. Oops, that's match history, not his popularity. Okay, he gained a point or two, which is good. Let's see here. Eddy. Ouch. That's a big loss. Yeah, I mean, that's what I expected. So, yeah, but we can rebuild him. I mean, 4-point gain with Knoble's, you know? I mean, we can build Eddy back up fairly quickly. It just hurts that he lost that, you know? But, you know, that's what happens, Eddy, when you hit your pop cap. You have to do some jobs. Let's see here. Bill Goldberg is Bill. Yeah, I mean, he's still the man. Yeah, even, yeah, he can gain a little. Let's see here. Rob Van Dam, did he get hurt by doing the job? Or not the job, but like the, no, he's about the same. And then Shane Helms, how is he doing? Helms is about the same. Cool. And then last but not least, so Jeff Hardy, who's actually quite over. Hardy, okay, actually got one up because of that. And then Booker, that's Bobby Heenan, not Booker, is actually back up to his former commanding heights of being like a really top guy. So that's all good. We check out creative. So Goldberg, Ram Bam Bam, Eddy, Kanyon, Booker T. So sort of who you'd expect. Who's hot? Ram Bam Bam, Jarrett, Booker, Mesias, AJ Styles. Again, who do you expect? Yeah, Talk the Talk is again Kanyon, Flair, Booker, Joni, Jeff Jarrett. Okay, fun times. Storylines, that stuff we care about is Angel Foxx and Cartier is at a 64. Booker Hardy's at an 89. Tag titles at an 81. Darkness Evolving is at a 77. Jarrett Kane's at a 78. Helms RVD is at a 78 as well. So yeah, fun times. So yeah, merch, just so you guys can see, it's Goldberg, Kanyon, over 1 million. Goldberg's at freaking 6 million, Jesus Christ. Vampiro's at a little over 600,000. So yeah, I think a really solid pay-per-view, you know, nothing too over the top, but you know, this builds up Booker as a top heel. We've got the RVD and Helms feud continuing, and other strong stuff. Obviously, as you can sort of see, we've got a too big roster problem, which is going to get fixed, but you know, there needs to be an actual decent storyline reason for, which I'll eventually figure out. But you know, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, I got the Patreon down, link is down below if you're interested in giving me some extra support, but not required, you know, not needed, you know, but again, if you want to, again, everything from just a little bit of support to get your name mentioned in the description up to, you know, picking your own storylines or signings if you want, depending on what level you add your support to. That's it for now. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. Comment below on what you're liking and not liking, and of course subscribe to the channel for lots of TEW 2020 content, including this series, my WCW 1994 series, which has now exited Slamboree, finally, just like this series has, and is heading towards a huge Great American Bash. We've got my MLW 2006 series, now heading towards first big, Shawn Univision, after being out of commission for a couple weeks, and my WWE 2013 series, where we're now heading towards Money in the Bank, with the main event of Cena versus Ziggler versus Orton, where Orton can win either title, and either man can become a double champion. But that's it for now, so talk to you later, and adios. Have a good one.